Hello, grade 7s. Today I have Cameron and Sarwat's names on the board. Thank you for doing your homework. I'm just going to be picking randomly people who've done their homework from yesterday. So good job to Cameron and Sarwat today. Today we are looking at the area of parallelograms. So as you know, if you want to find the area of a square or a rectangle, what do? Well, you multiply the length times the width. So let's see, is that what we do for parallelograms? Let's try this out. So look at this first one. So here's a parallelogram. So remember, a parallelogram has 4 sides, and each pair of sides are parallel to one another. Okay, so let's see. So the length of this parallelogram is 10 times 10. So 10 times 10, 100. So this would be the area of this one, if that's how you find area of parallelogram. But let's look at this one. This one is the exact same length and width, 10 times 10. That's also an area of 100. Let's just look at that. Does this look like it has the same area here as it does here? So even without measuring, you can see that this area is much smaller than this one. But if we use the length and the width to find the area, then it would be the same number. So that can't be how it's done. So let's try to look at this and see how, if we can figure out how could we find the area of a parallelogram. Okay, so let's look at this top one, and let's look at this parallelogram and figure out how could we make this into a rectangle. So if you had this, if you want to make one on paper, you could try this yourself if you don't understand it or you want to just see for yourself. So you can try doing this on paper. But let's put some dotted lines here and imagine that we are cutting this parallelogram. Okay, so we've created a triangle here and another shape here. Now we're going to take this part of the shape and move it over here. Okay, so if you can imagine what that looks like, it's going to look, let's see, it's going to fit in here, and then it's going to fit in there, and it's going to turn this shape into a rectangle. So if we imagine that we took that shape and put it here. So let's think how we could find, so remember, how do you find the area of a rectangle? So length times width. So we could take this whole length here, which was 10, so that will also be 10, and we can look and think, what is this number here? Well, that number is this number, which is, we could measure that and find out what that is. So let's take a look in that. Actually, I just made those numbers up, so let's just make something up. So let's just say that is 10, okay? So then we have 10 times 10, so that's 100. But if we had one of our smaller ones like this, then we would have a much smaller number. So just say it was 10 times 5, so that would be 50. So even if you had the same length and width, you can see it's a different area. So the way we find the area of a parallelogram is base times height. Okay, so it's very similar to length times width. You still have this side here, so that's the base, but then it depends on how tall your parallelogram is, not how long your side is. Okay, so now what we're going to do is try to find the area of a few different parallelograms using the base and the height. Okay, so let's say we have a parallelogram and the base is 30 centimeters and the height is 0.4 meters. So we said, well, you just multiply the base and the height. But what do you notice here that we need to do first before we can do that? So we have 30 centimeter base and a height 0.4 meters. Well, we have to either convert this to centimeters or this to meters, right? Because we can't use two different units like that. So remember that 1 meter equals 100 centimeters. You need to have 100 centimeters before you have a whole meter. So why don't we change this into centimeters? So we'll have 30 centimeters for the base, and then the height will be, so we have to move that over 2 spaces, so 40 centimeters. So 30 times 40 is 1,200 centimeters. Or we could say it's 12 meters. Okay, so let's look at another one. So if we have a base of 3 meters and a height of 45 centimeters. Okay, so again, you can think, do you want to change the meters into centimeters or the centimeters into meters? So let's change this one. So we will say, so there's 100 here, so 300 centimeters and 45, let's see if I wrote that down right, 45 centimeters. So then we would multiply those and get our answer. And feel free to use a calculator for any of these questions in your book. So, okay, so remember, so the area of a parallelogram, it's base times height, and just make sure that you're using the same unit for both numbers. So for homework, I have a couple questions for you to try, and I'll write those down here. So on page 171, or 170 and 171, numbers 3 and 6, and you can send me that work today. Great, thanks.